So as well as having an impact in terms of the environment, this also has an individual impact for people's careers and development and what they're able to do as well. So whether it's a SocEnv impact or the multiple individual impacts across all of our registrants, professional registration is critical to all of that.
Communication's key. We need to make sure that everyone's aware of these opportunities.
I had a lot of people message me on LinkedIn after asking how I'd made the switch into it and could I help them with advice on what certificates to take and what's a good route to go into it. So that was amazing to be able to share that, and again gives that ability to sort of share how to make that switch a bit later in life and from a different career.
Welcome to the Society of the Environment EnvCast, where we feature special guests highlighting an environment top 5 each month. Each month, we welcome 2 environmental professionals to explore what they believe to be the top 5 things to consider within a particular topic. Topics range from climate to leadership, agriculture to AI, and everything in between. Look out for some curveballs in the top 5 each month, and remember, we can't cover every important thing within a topic. Our aim is to uncover how you can be part of the solution, to learn from the experts, and to sometimes think outside of the box as we strive for a sustainable future. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome back to EnvCast for another Environment Top 5. This time we're doing something a bit different by looking back at some highlights from 2025 across our work at SocEnv with a good splash of impact here and there. We're covering 5 key sections as normal. Today we're covering collaboration, celebrating registrants, growth in environmental registrants, that's numbers, not height, apprenticeships, and our upcoming new strategy. But first, I'm Phil from the Society for the Environment and your podcast host for today. We also have Sophie in the background making sure I say the right things and making the whole thing sound as good as can be. To give you an insight into SocEnv's 2025 impact, I'll be joined by a number of guests on a number of separate recordings, which is going to be hilarious fun to edit, but we'll see how it goes. Our guest biographies are in the podcast description, but as an extremely short introduction, I'm very pleased to be joined by Chartered Environmentalist and our Chief Executive, Emma Wilcox, Chartered Environmentalist Rebecca Hearn from SocEnv's Soils and Stones project, Registered Environmental Practitioner and 2025 Rising Star winner, Chantelle Brandwood, Tom Cheek, SocEnv's Education Relationship Manager, and Chartered Environmentalist and Honorary Fellow, Professor Ian Barker, who is Vice Chair of our board and lead for the new strategy. So, let's get straight into the impact. Number 1 is collaboration. I'm going to hand over to Emma in a moment, but I'll provide some examples from the year for a bit of context to start off with. We facilitated 2 new strategic roundtables, one for our licensed member leadership teams and another for our employer champions. Licensed member editions saw 25 of our 28 partners involved, not bad for a first attempt. In terms of pledge to net zero, as of June, members have cut nearly 1 million tonnes from their corporate emissions since coming together in 2019. This is the equivalent, apparently, of 200,000 round-the-world flights. And this year, in 2025, 125 organisations of all sizes reported their performance, up from 110 in 2024 and 89 in 2023. Chartered Week was created by BCS as a fully collaborative initiative. We joined forces with 40 other professional bodies to celebrate chartership, 17 of which offer CM registration. One of our Chartered Week focused LinkedIn posts ended up being our most successful of the year in terms of engagement out of any post that we posted on LinkedIn. So it was quite useful in that sense, in many senses. So with all that in mind, I'm going to ask Emma, why are collaborative efforts like these important to SocEnv and our goals?
Thanks, Phil. Thank you for inviting me onto the podcast. So those who know SocEnv, you will know that collaboration is something that sits very key to us. And if you're new to knowing about us, SocEnv was created about 22 years ago now. And the whole focus of of that creation was to be an umbrella organisation. That means collaboration is in our DNA. It's at the core of everything that we do. The original premise for SocEnv was to bring together different organisations to work together against common themes. And the key part of that is our registration of environmental professionals. So you can be an environmental professional in a very core environmental profession, such as environmental management or ecology, but equally you could be an engineer with a specialist in sustainable design. You can be an architect with a specialism in different materials and a whole other range of things. And what we really believe is that we want everyone who works in the environment to be recognised as a trusted professional. So that naturally brings us to a collaboration of all of those different organisations. But if we look at the membership of our member bodies, you're currently in the order of 650,000 people. That's a lot of collaboration potential, and that's a lot of potential impact as well. And all of the people who are members of all those organisations genuinely believe in professionalism because they are members of professional bodies. So we're able to use that collaboration to really generate impact. And we do that in a number of different ways. So first of all, we, as Phil's already mentioned, twice last year, we brought all of our member bodies together to look at our strategy, look at the impact that we're having, look at how we can work better together. What can we learn from what we've done? But actually, what else can we do going forward as well? Which are two really powerful sessions that have been really influential in our new strategy that you're going to hear about later on. The second group that we brought together last year was our employer champions. Now, all our employer champions are individuals who champion and support professional registration for their staff. And that's why we recognise them. And again, we brought them as a group together to listen to their ideas, to their challenges, the issues they have around recruitment or competence or skills or any other area as well. And again, that was really helpful for us. And really insightful for our new strategy going forward as well. But finally, because we work with registrants and chartered environmentalists and registered environmental practitioners and technicians across such a broad range of different disciplines, facilitating those individuals to work together has a huge impact. And a really great example of that is our Swords and Stones group, where we initially brought individuals together from everything from quarrying and manufacturing and construction right through to soil health as well. And that's been a really powerful, influential group that's done fantastic collaborations, had a big impact in a number of different ways.
So collaboration is key. And what an excellent segue. Thank you very much for that little segue, Emma, into we're going to talk to Rebecca now. Rebecca, you became a chartered environmentalist in 2025, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Excellent.
And partly due to my involvement with the Swords and Stones project. So in terms of impacts, for personal impact for me was that the engagement with the Swords and Stones project team has sort of pushed me forward to step and doing my chartership. So yeah, excellent. That's a personal impact.
Well, we like these personal impacts are good. Excellent stuff. It has the Swords and Stones have had so many different positive things come out of it, which hopefully we're going to explore. So could you talk us through what's been happening within the Swords and Stones project in 2025 and what it all means, essentially?
Yeah, of course I can. So just echoing Emma's thanks for the invitation to join today. And yeah, as you say, a lovely segue from Emma into the Swords and Stones project. So just a little bit of a background. The Swords and Stones project was set up in 2019 with the first output being the 2021 Swords and Stones report. The aims of the report were sharing good practice for soils and stones reuse, advocating for policies that recognise the value of this resource, and making connections and finding collaborative solutions. So that report was published, as I say, in 2021 and had a big impact in that first couple of years, with evidence from that report used in the MP Soil Health Inquiry in 2023. So we put together a commitment to a triennial review, which was undertaken in 2024. And moving forward from that, we identified how we would go forward until the next triennial review with actions and outputs that would be key to driving impacts from the project team. So I became aware of the Soils and Stones project through my IES registration, and identified that through my community interest company, Midlands Land Events, that we had some shared sort of goals with the Soils and Stones project, and have been working alongside the Soils and Stones project team, along with the Silo to Soil project team, to create a publication of a tool called the Silo to Soil tool, which was published this year. The tool aims to help people navigate the different organisations and publications and guidance within various different locations and disciplines across soils. And the impact that the Soils and Stones team have had on the tool has been that having that access to the a wide group of chartered professionals across different disciplines has allowed the tool not only to reach in a broader number of disciplines, but also become less England centric, because we've got members and organisations across different locations in the UK. So the tool was launched, as I say, through SocEnv at the CPD event earlier in the year, and it was a great event, and the number of different people who were represented at that event was like fantastic. There's such a broad number of speakers on the day, with different backgrounds, disciplines, and a lot for everyone to learn. The other element of impact from the launch of the tool has been engagement across other organisations, British Society of Soil Science, Sustainable Soils Alliance, as well as universities have shown interest in the development of the tool. As I mentioned, the CPD event had a wide number of disciplines represented there, and during that event there was a challenge set out to look at the sustainable use of soils and whether there could be a hierarchy set out that sort of gave an overarching framework for how soils could be reused, and to keep soils at the highest possible value. And the output from that event was the launch of the soils management hierarchies, both for development sites and for rural settings, and a very successful webinar for the launch of these in the autumn, with I think 250 or more attendees on the day, and a lot more traffic through the website, people exploring those. I think in total, over 2,700 people have engaged with the Silo Soil tool and the soil hierarchies combined since their launch. So really broad reach, increasing awareness, and a lot of engagement with those tools. The third output to reflect on, which is just one of the consultation responses produced by the project team this year, is the landfill tax reform consultation response, which was in late summer. So all of the responses to consultation are written through a collaborative writing process, with the outputs representing the views of the project in relation to the project aims. And with those responses coming from a body that's truly transdisciplinary with chartered professionals, provided a detailed and measured response to the consultation. The impact of the response was the contribution to the government change of plan. So they announced that they wouldn't be taking forward those reforms, which was a really welcomed response, really, by everyone who had engaged with it. But it was really interesting to see how lots of different bodies responded to that, whether from seemingly sort of unrelated backgrounds. So it was really truly a transdisciplinary response that was required to that because of the interconnected social, economic and environmental challenges that the consultation provided. So that's just a snapshot of 3 key outputs from the Soils and Stones project team in 2025 and the sort of high level impacts that they've had. I think just for me as a sports person, I always think about things in terms of a team. And for me, being part of this Soils and Stones project team is much like being a member of a sports team. You value the things that you learn from your teammates, their support and friendship, but also them pushing you to do the best for your team as well as for yourself. And as I said at the beginning, that really drove me to do my chartership this year. Last year now. And yeah, it's just it's great to be part of a team that wants to do something for environmental betterment.
Well, I can't disagree with any of that. It's been fantastic to see what's happening with the Soils and Stones project since it started. I was a lot more involved when it started, but this year in particular, or this year just gone, has been quite the year for the project, I think. And the amount of, we're talking about collaboration, the amount of kind of knowledge sharing opportunities, you've produced expert-led guidance outputs. The webinar is ridiculously good, which is great to see. Those guidance outputs with the hierarchies and so on, fantastic toolkits to come out of that level of collaboration, and long may it continue. Hopefully we can use it as a bit of a template for going beyond Soils and Stones into different areas that are covered within the multidisciplinary base of the SocEnv registrants. So thank you very much for that, Rebecca.
Yeah.
We are going to move on to topic number 2, which is celebrating our registrants, and starting with the 2025 SocEnv Awards. We had joint winners of the Environmental Professional of the Year Award in Chartered Environmentalists Robbie Epsom and Lucas Howe. The Rising Star Award was won by Registered Environmental Practitioner Chantelle Brandwood, and we're pleased to have Chantelle here to tell us more about winning the award and how that impacted you this year. So, a massive congratulations again. Very well deserved. Has it been a good year so far? Well, just gone.
It has, yeah.
Is it 2026? I think it is.
Yes, yeah, it's crept up on us. Yes, it was amazing to win. It was in June. I had to look up when it was that I actually won it because it was a bit of a whirlwind. I decided to apply for the award because I'd been doing a lot more CPD and attending more webinars and things through Society of Environment, and kept seeing these come up and thought, do you know what, why not? I became a REMVP in 2023, so seemed like a good time to try and pull everything together that I'd done into one sort of place, one application. Doing the actual application process itself was actually really helpful for me in terms of professional development, to actually look at what I've done and what I was hoping to achieve moving forward as well. Because when you work on your own, as I'm a sort of a sole consultant, it's quite, you miss things. You were not part of that team. And sort of Rebecca talking then about being part of a team and a project team, that's something that you really do feel when you sort of work on your own as an independent consultant. So having the network and having the ability to join in with different sessions and working groups and things is really valuable. I was very shocked to win, so that was great. I'm really glad I actually went to the day, because that would have been a disaster if I'd not attended. And it was a great day of information and talks as well. Winning the award was amazing. I think coming into sort of the sustainability space a bit later in my career and not having the traditional environmental science degree and things like that, to actually win and have that sort of external confidence boost, if you like, was really, really helpful for me. I think everybody has some element of imposter syndrome, and it can sort of take over sometimes, especially when there's so many amazing scientific, technical people in this space. So having the award and being able to sort of add that and say, you know, this has been recognised by other people. It's not just me saying that I can do sustainability. Has been a really big thing for my career personally. In terms of confidence, I actually submitted my chartered application last week, so that's underway, which is
hot off the press.
Yeah. So that would be really awkward if that doesn't go well, won't it? So I just told everybody. So we'll see how that goes over the next few weeks.
We can cut that bit out if we need to. I'm sure you'll be fine.
After winning and after the event, I met a lot of really interesting people at the event. I had a lot of people message me on LinkedIn after, asking how I'd made the switch into it and could I help them with advice on what certificates to take and what's a good route to go into it. So that was amazing to be able to share that, and again gives that ability to sort of share how to make that switch a bit later in life and from a different career. Was thinking about what I'd actually achieved in terms of impact last year. So the award obviously was very impactful, but in terms of the work that I've done with clients, again, I think it's given more legitimacy. Thankfully, I've had some new clients come on board last year, which is great. I've had 2 more companies go through the full SBTi validation route and have their targets validated, which is fantastic. 20 people have gone through carbon literacy training with me, and that one of those was through a school which I volunteer with through the STEM Climate Ambassadors Programme. So that was a first for me, and doing it in a different environment rather than a business was really good, and seeing how the pupils and the kids, because it's primary school, really engage and put most of the grown-ups and all of us to shame, to be honest, with what they're doing and how passionate they are was really great to see. And some slightly niche areas that I work with, I do carbon literacy training with hairdressers as well. So we look at how all those hard to deal with things like foils, hair dyes, the actual hair itself, believe it or not, they can actually collect that and turn it into things like hair booms that soak up oil spills. So there's all this great stuff going on in industries where you wouldn't necessarily think, one, there was necessarily a problem, but then that there's also these great solutions to deal with it as well. A big area for me is in the pets and vet sector, because that was my sort of previous role before switching into sustainability sort of full time. There are a lot of environmental considerations with pets, and that's something that throughout my career I've tried to tackle. So whether it's the environmental impact of the parasiticides that we use, a lot of single-use plastics, obviously similar to human health because of sterility and hygiene concerns, but pet food and owner behaviours is a massive driver. I developed a carbon calculator for pets a couple of years ago with one of my pet insurance clients. Yeah, we did. Started off with cats and dogs, added horses into that as well. And it's very high level. It's for a pet owner to do. This isn't an LCA on a pet by any stretch, but it gives them pointers on the things that do drive environmental impact and how they can potentially tweak things. So it looks at how many miles, for example, if they drive a lot with their pet to go for a walk, are they driving a lot to doggy daycare? What sort of food are they feeding the pet? Because there was a study out last week. It was actually all over the mainstream news, which was great to see. Dog food accounts for 1% of carbon emissions in the UK. And that is mainly driven because obviously most dogs eat a really meat-based diet, and to see the things that are happening in that space as well. So there's vegan protein pet foods coming out based on insects, based on all different things. It's amazing to see the things that are happening. But if you don't know that this is an issue, you wouldn't think to tackle that. So that's what we try to do with the carbon calculator, make it really fun to use. It's got some lovely animations on there, but most importantly, no shaming over choices, because that, if you don't know, you don't know, and it gives pointers on what they could do, and hopefully things that work well for their family and their pet, and the health needs as well of the pet. So that's a big focus for me personally, because of my previous role and being lucky enough to work with a lot of pets and vet companies and practices. It's a fantastic space to work in. Again, very scientific, very technical, lots of very, very intelligent people in there. I don't have a degree, never have done, never tried to hide that either. So having the Rising Star Award gives an extra layer of credibility, which is always nice to have when going into a room with very, very technical people, especially when we're doing life cycle analysis and things like that. So it's
interesting.
It's been fantastic, and hopefully the Chartered will follow.
Hopefully, yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that one. Excellent. Yeah. Always good to hear an update like that. I must admit, I thought, because of the award and I've read your application and that kind of thing, I thought I knew a reasonable amount about your work, but there's a lot going on there. All excellent stuff. Crikey, I'm gonna need to learn a bit more. You mentioned a few things there which caught my eye. You do a lot as an independent consultant, as all independent consultants do, and you mentioned the SocEnv community kind of helps with that in a way, because you get to talk to people that aren't your four walls in your office or whatever it might be. And we hear that a lot. That confidence boost, the external confidence boost of winning the award, we also hear that a lot for people when they get registered, let alone when they win an award.
Yes.
Did you find that when you became an RFP?
Massively, yeah, because that, it's great to have a lovely certificate and to be able to put some letters against your name, but to go through that process and have it externally validated is a massive thing. And that next step up, if hopefully the chartered application goes well, that has been a goal of mine for the last couple of years. And obviously you have to get everything in place and make sure that your application is going to stand up, because it's not an easy process. I was like, I'm going to apply for my chartered, and taking the time to do the submission, working with a mentor, having to gather all the evidence. It's not an easy process to go through, which again, I think gives it a lot of legitimacy and I think hope when that comes through. Again, similar to the becoming registered, it's a real massive sort of stamp of, yes, okay, you're doing good work, what you're doing is important, and we're happy to have you as part of our community is a massive deal for me personally.
Yeah. And this is going to sound strange, but it's fantastic to hear that you don't have a degree. Partly because of the opportunity, because it's seen as a barrier for some people, and you don't need to have a degree to become a chartered environmentalist or a registered environmental practitioner. You have to have the knowledge, but you do not have to have a degree. In fact, chartership is set at a master's degree level, but again, you don't have to have a degree or a master's degree, and it's great to have those examples out there of those who haven't gone down that pathway, because there are so many different pathways to look into. And later in this podcast, we'll be talking to Tom, who is spearheading our work in that sense. And I think in the Impact Report 2 years ago, possibly, we were talking about changes that we made to make our registrations more accessible. We didn't change that you had to have a degree, and I think that was always the case. You don't have to do that. But we were putting things in place to allow more people to hit less barriers, essentially, or perceive less barriers, or whatever that might look like. So it's great to hear another example of that. But thank you very much for sharing what happened last year with us. And congratulations again. Now, sticking with the celebrating registrants theme, other things that we were doing last year, podcasts, because EnvCast returned in 2025 with the Environment Top 5, which was a refreshed format featuring 2 expert guests per episode and focusing each installment on a current topic to share knowledge and inspire our listeners to play their part. The new approach has already resulted in higher listener figures, which can't be bad for impact. In 2025, we heard from David Simons, Saul Humphrey, Julie Batty, David Lindsley Hood, Astrid Wynne, Dominic Walkling, Kello Uchendu, Jenny Stein, Jonathan Atkinson, Robert Earle, Laura Mayhew Manchu, Cheryl Lee, Adam Reed, and Jane Gilbert on topics such as AI, net zero, influencing others, and the most recent episode on the UK carbon budget and growth delivery plan. If you've missed any, find them wherever you listen to your podcasts or watch them on YouTube. The links are in the description. Beyond our awards and podcasts, we've showcased registrants in profiles on our website and awarded Chartered Environmentalist Adam Donnan with Honorary Fellowship. We secured a slot for a Chartered Environmentalist on the Institute of Directors podcast, as well as spotting registrants across Environment 100 lists, the ENDS Power list, the New Year's Honours list, and all sorts of good lists, including Santa's. And on that note, shall we move on to impact number 3, I think. SocEnv's impact is only possible with our registrants. And in good news, the number of registrants is growing. In 2025, we've reached 9,000 current registrants for the first time, which can't be bad news. So we're back with Emma. Why is this good news? And why are more registered environmental professionals important?
So great question. So let's start with the why is it important? So at SocEnv, one of our core reasons for existing is to set and apply standards on environmental professionalism. Now, that could be, as I've said before, that could be someone whose role is very much core environment, like ecology, or somebody who works in a different profession, but with an environmental focus. And our standards are applied equally across all of them. But why is that really important? Because we want people to make decisions who are competent to make those decisions. But we also want people who are trusted as a professional to be making those decisions. So we've seen an awful lot over recent years around experts and around trust and around competence. And it's really important that people are able to demonstrate that they are capable of making these decisions, that they're making the right decisions, and they are doing it in a way that is good for the environment. So ultimately, our vision at SocEnv is we want anyone who works with the environment and to protect the environment to be recognised as a trusted professional. And you do that by firstly demonstrating your competence. I've talked about that one. Secondly, maintaining that competence. So we ask people to do regular, continual professional development, make sure they stay up to speed. But the other part that sometimes gets forgotten is we ask all of our registrants to sign a code of professional conduct. So whether that's our chartered environmentalists or our entry levels, everybody signs up to the same code, and that's about how they're going to work, not just the knowledge that they're going to apply. And you can go onto our website and you can read that. And that for me is the fundamental part of professional registration, that how you're going to work. So we are seeing growth. So our numbers between 2024 and 2025 for our CEnV register, we saw a 21% increase in new registrants between those 2 years. For our registered environmental practitioner register, we saw a 25% increase between 24 and 25. And that practitioner register we only introduced in 2021. And we've seen a really strong take up of that register over those few years that it's been coming through. And what you'll start to see early this year is we're also introducing an entry-level registration as well for people coming in direct from education or from other experiences, helping people on that journey towards some of those other levels as well. So it's really important that we're seeing the growth because there's an awful lot to do. We need people who are taking up green jobs, working broadly in the environmental space. But we also, as I said before, we need people who are able to demonstrate their competence, but also sign up to that code of professional conduct to be really trusted professionals.
And I guess beyond that, the more environmental professionals that are registered, the more registered mentors and people of influence that we have to grow even further, I suppose. So to widen that net.
Exactly. And we've heard about the work of the Swords and Stones group and the work that they are able to do and the impact that they're able to have. And we've also heard about winning an award, but also the career benefits that it gives to individuals. So as well as having an impact in terms of the environment, this also has an individual impact for people's careers and development and what they're able to do as well. So whether it's a SocEnv impact or the multiple individual impacts across all of our registrants. Professional registration is critical to all of that.
What is it important that we are seeing a lot of registrants coming through from outside of the UK as well?
Of course, environmental issues or global issues. People work in lots of different ways. We've got lots of registrants in the UK, but we've got lots overseas as well. Some work for global organisations working around the world, some more specific in different geographies. Absolutely, it's critical that wherever those decisions are being taken, they're done in the best way for the environment that they're in.
And bringing back the collaboration piece, we're going to try and take that step forwards, I think, which we're probably going to hear from Ian about in section 5. But bringing people together across different regions across the world or different sectors and that kind of thing. We've already heard from the Swords and Stones. So that's going to be important going forward, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think such a critical part of the work that our registrants do is to help others understand. And now we know that there's an awful lot of challenge around the world. There's a lot of environmental challenge around the world. But actually having people who really understand an issue and are really able to kind of demonstrate what this actually means and communicate with people and help them understand as well is a really powerful tool.
Exactly. Thank you very much for that, Emma. And we're going to go into topic number 4, which is all about apprenticeships and pathways, which we've kind of touched on a few things so far already, especially with Chantelle, and Emma's mentioned a few things there, and Rebecca's just become a chartered environmentalist. So, Tom, can you tell us more about your education work within SocEnv and what kind of impacts you've seen in 2025 and what you have big plans in terms of impacts? Let's hear about those as well.
Right. Thanks, Phil. You're nice to be contributing to this. So yeah, our educational pathways activity really focuses on identifying those education and skill pathways that are developing environmental professional knowledge, skills and competence. And this could be from a broad range of provision, vocational, technical and academic. So as Chantelle mentioned, a while ago, the registration doesn't always have to come from a degree route. It can come from multiple routes. So, today I'm going to focus much of our work on what we've been developing around the apprenticeship space, because, when we look at apprenticeships, there's real opportunity here. We know that individuals who complete apprenticeship programs have demonstrated by the end of their provision full occupational competence. They've got significant practical experience, and they've demonstrated that they can apply environmental knowledge in their day-to-day work. And these are all key requirements to be professionally registered. So throughout 2025, we explored a broad and diverse range of occupations to identify where there was an apprenticeship route that existed for that occupation. So much of this work is focused on the occupational standards and the apprenticeships that have been developed through Skills England in partnership with employers as trailblazer groups. And as part of that work at SocEnv, we've created a model that enables us to assess what are the mandated aspects of an apprenticeship and how does that map back to our register requirements. Where there's a strong alignment, that means we can then offer a shortened route to registration. And that means the apprentice can use their apprenticeship certificate as the evidence that they're meeting most, and in some cases, all of the competency requirements. What we're wanting to achieve from that is we want professional registration to be accessible, and we want that kind of seamless progression from completing an apprenticeship into that longer term continuous professional development that could be supported through being professionally registered and being a member of a licensed professional body as part of that too. So when we reach the end of 2025, we've identified 12 apprenticeships that map to registered environmental technician, or REM Tech. And those occupations span a broad range of occupations. We're talking things like energy management, the water sector, countryside, corporate responsibility and sustainability, construction design, arboriculture and forestry, and low carbon heating, to name a few. On top of that, we've also identified 8 apprenticeships that map to registered environmental practitioner, or RMP. And those occupations are in things like geoscience and soil science and ecology and horticulture and landscaping. We've got some more forestry and arboriculture, sustainability business specialisms and environmental management. So very broad and diverse and representative of our professional body organisations that are licensed members with us as well. So showing that environmental professionalism crosses multiple sectors and multiple occupations. So in each of those cases, that mapping work will enable those individuals to maximise the value of their apprenticeship achievement. It means that they can secure professional registration once they've completed the course, and that means they get benefits well beyond the apprenticeship itself. But the purpose of this work and the impact of this work isn't just with the individual, it's wider. So for things like an employer's perspective, seeing an apprenticeship program that's professionally registered can give them confidence that that program is genuinely going to deliver high quality and externally recognised skills that's going to address their workforce skills needs. From an education and training provider perspective, having professional registration can support them in enabling their apprentices to get positive post-learning destination. And it shows to their network that they are delivering programs that can enable that long-term career and professional development too. From a skills policy perspective, mapping apprenticeships enables us to influence the content of occupational standards themselves. We can look to embed the environmental professional standards that underpin our registers into apprenticeships. And that's not just in those traditional, very kind of green occupations, but also those growing number of occupations that are greening with new technologies, new innovations, new methodologies, new principles. It shows that green skills apply to so many sectors and so many occupations. Building on that influence means we can engage with assessment organisations, awarding bodies, and again, we can support that seamless progression from educational achievement to professional registration. The work enables us to work even further in the technical education space. So when we're looking at occupational standards, those same occupational standards that develop apprenticeships also develop programs such as T-levels and higher technical qualifications. These are programs that we know are going to have more emphasis in addressing workforce skills needs over the coming years. So, looking ahead into 2026, we're launching this new register, an entry-level environmentalist register. And those particular technical education routes, those T-levels, those higher technical quals, are going to enable us to support more individuals in accessing registration earlier in their careers, whether that's entering the profession or whether that's transitioning in some way within their current career. And as that work continues, so does our ability to influence. We can expand our work. So we're now taking all the learnings we've done to date, and we're now looking at the devolved nation provisions. So we've already identified apprenticeships in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland that can link to our registers, and we'll be trying to create, again, accessible pathways in that way. Communication's key. We need to make sure that everyone's aware of these opportunities. So in 2025, we launched a new skills website that's specifically designed to provide the information, advice and guidance for students, apprentices, providers, whether that's FE, further education, higher education, or independent training providers, assessment organisations, employers and impact organisations. So essentially, we want to make sure all the information is there so they can explore what are the features and benefits of being professionally registered, why it's something that's important in their career. Additionally, we're delivering workshops to support specific cohorts. So as an example, back in December 25, we brought together over 50 apprentices who are environmental practitioner apprentices, along with their providers and their employers. And we explored the features and benefits of being professionally registered and gave guidance in that way. And in fact, we have an insight piece on our skills website that can give you a background of that type of workshop and how that can give further guidance. So I suppose going forward, our focus is really on strengthening those connections, that visibility of professional registration, and making sure that it's embedded within the education and skills system, creating accessible pathways to professional registration. I suppose ultimately what this is demonstrating is that our apprenticeship mapping allows us to influence the quality of education, ensuring that it's got environmental competency embedded within the system. It gives employers confidence in the talent that can come through these education and skills programs, and it can support people at all stages of their career. So that's like a whistle-stop tour, essentially, of apprenticeship mapping and what we've achieved in 25 and our ambitions for 26 too.
Given I know the amount of work you do, Tom, that is definitely whistle-stop, but gives us a good flavour of what's been going on over the last 12 months, which obviously we've been in the planning for a while before that, and then there's a lot coming, right? So did you say 12 apprenticeships mapped for IOM Tech?
Correct, yeah, and then eight for
IOMP. More of those to come, do we think?
Absolutely, yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely. So we are now working very kind of proactively with Skills England. So we're looking at the trailblazer groups, so we're looking at apprenticeships that are coming through, and we're able to now look at the draft standards that are being created and influence what are the knowledge and skills and the mandated contents within that, trying to influence and to ensure it embeds and links well to our competency requirements of those registers. Yeah. Absolutely intend that to grow. And of course, with any reforms, making sure that we can retain that eligibility for anyone on those programs too.
Very nice. And I guess if people are interested in getting involved in whatever way, I suppose, if you are involved in the apprenticeship schemes within your employer, or whether you're keen to just help communicate, you said communication was key, right? So if people are keen to help support that in some way as influencers across your networks, or whether it might be, we're always keen for people to get involved, I guess.
Absolutely. And as we say, we're engaging directly with kind of cohorts of apprentices, and that might be across multiple providers or directly with particular providers. So having kind of registrants input in that to kind of demonstrate the value that registration has for them, to demonstrate, so those individuals maybe a little earlier in their career could be really valuable and powerful to show that message and others' journeys. So we'd be really keen to have other registrants involved to support that message and that narrative as we're sharing it with providers and apprentices.
Absolutely. And as people go through the apprenticeship schemes that come out of the event, we are very much looking forward to finding out the kind of impact they are having as individuals working across their teams and wherever they work on the environment. So hopefully we'll be able to do some case studies on that at some point soon. But we're relatively at the start of this journey, aren't we?
The infrastructure's there. The engagement is building, and we're really keen and looking forward to seeing where that takes us. But we can see already, the impact that is having in terms of our own influence in the education and skill system and how we can influence content going forward in provision in that way.
So watch your space, keep in touch, keep in a loop, keep watching, keep looking at the Skills web microsite. Get my words out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
On to topic number 5. The final item to cover in this episode is the small matter of our future. Ian, could you give us an outline of SocEnv's strategy work from 2025 that's happened so far? Why does this strategy seem so important? And give us a bit of a taste of what that might look like for our ambitions, I guess, in the next 3, 4, 5 years and beyond. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil, and hello, everybody. I joined the board of Society for the Environment because I wanted to find out more about SocEnv and also contribute as best I could. So I was delighted when I was asked to lead the development of our new strategy because, as you'll know, Society for the Environment, we've been around for 20 years. We're doing well, but everything around us is changing. So where do we want to be in 20 years' time? And that fundamentally is why we need a strategy. We're well run, numbers of registrants are growing, but we are fundamentally still the same organization as we were when we were founded 20 years ago by that group of far-sighted individuals with vision and determination. And there's an adage in business, which is if you're standing still, you're going backwards. And although we are growing, it feels sometimes a little bit as if we're standing still. And the world around us has changed in ways unimaginable 20 years ago. And we as a society need to recognize that and respond accordingly. All over the planet, the environment is under threat from overexploitation of its natural resources, from pollution, and from a changing climate. And although some governments do their best to try and tackle those challenges, very often political and economic pressures stand in the way of good intentions. And as you'll be well aware, some governments or some elements in society don't recognise or don't care about the state of the planet. And fake and misleading information is everywhere. And we've seen that on social media, which allows everyone to call themselves an environmentalist, everyone to have a voice, everyone to say they're an expert. But the only way that you actually know whether someone is competent, is committed to their CPD, to behaving ethically, and can be trusted, is if they have a professional registration. And increasingly, as registrants within SocEnv and as a society, we will need to step up and champion good science and evidence-based action. And that's the challenge that we face within our strategy, which is how can we ensure that we're an organisation which is fit for purpose for the next 20 years in the face of all those pressures? How can we do the best for our current crop of registrants and all those professionals who over the next few years will want to come and join us to demonstrate their expertise, their commitment to ethics, and to demonstrate that they can be trusted in the face of all this fake news and misleading information. So our strategy, we've been working on it now for just three or 4 months, and quite quickly we honed in on 3 interconnected themes which plot the course for us over the next 20 years. And they will help us to move forward to become the organisation that we need to be and not be standing still while the world around us changes. Because every organisation reaches a point where it needs to take a step back and to reflect and then to act accordingly. And our strategy development is doing just that for us. The themes are, first of all, a growth in the number of registrants to a significant step change in the numbers and diversity of our registrants. The guys that founded SocEnv 20 years ago had significant ambitions, and I know that they were hoping that by now numbers would be significantly more than they are. I think they probably underestimated what it takes to set up a professional society and ensure that it's established and well run. But we're now at the point where I think we have great potential to grow, but we need to focus on that. Secondly, in terms of themes, for SocEnv and its registrants to be better recognised and valued by employers, governments, and the wider public. Sometimes SocEnv feels a bit like a best-kept secret, and excuse me. And people often ask me about the CEnv in my email signature, and I explain about Society of the Environment, and they're really interested, but have never heard of us. And we need to be better known, and that will help us, but not only in terms of increasing our attraction to potential registrants, but also the potential influence which we can wield in the face of the challenges that we face within the UK and beyond. And that is our third theme, for us to be influential with policymakers and regulators, and to be seen as an independent and impartial source of advice and knowledge. And that's not just the society itself, but critically all of our registrants, to be seen as part of a bigger club, if you like. Emma said earlier that we were able to bring together people across disciplines, and that's one of our great strengths that I feel we should be exploiting much more, and hope that we can in the future. And the Swords and Stones project is a great example of us doing that. Because the environment is integrated, everything is joined up, but too often responses to the challenges don't recognise the need to join up expertise across a range of disciplines. And when you look at the diversity of roles which our registrants carry out, we have a fantastic opportunity to address the challenges and develop solutions in a way which don't inadvertently cause a problem when we're trying to solve a different one. And critically, Emma and her team are great, but it can't just be them who deliver on all of this. All of our member bodies have a part to play, and we've engaged them closely in the strategies development. And I've been really pleased with the feedback that we've had, and their recognition of the need to think long term, to think strategically, and for them to play a part in the 3 themes that I just outlined. And in terms of strategy development, I just do need to say I'm not doing this on my own. I'm very fortunate to have Sarah Ridgeon in Emma's team, doing a lot of the legwork, and much of the credit will go to her. But also have a great group of board members who are just bursting with good ideas, and it's wonderful to see them almost unleashed and contributing. They're really enthusiastic about this forward look. We're aiming to launch the strategy in April or May, so watch out for announcements on that. And think what you can do to help deliver it. Rebecca said earlier in this podcast that we're all part of a team. We can do things together that we could never achieve on our own. And that's where I want the strategy to take us.
Thank you very much for that, Ian. Very, very useful insight into what we're aiming for, I suppose. As I've always been very intrigued. I've heard a reasonable amount about the strategy as it's being developed. In terms of those 3 main pillars that you mentioned, clearly there's lots of other work going on as well, but and we're all working towards a similar goal. But with those pillars, I suppose you see them working side by side. There's not a chicken and egg. We don't necessarily need a step change in registrants to make the other 2 happen, but I guess they must help each other.
No, absolutely. We can't wait for one of them to be complete, whatever that means, before we then start on another one. So the 3 need to go forward together. We will need, as part of the strategy planning, and in terms of guiding Emma and her team for their business plan over 5-year steps, we will need to think about relative priorities at any one time. But I think it's critical that we get a good foundation on those 3 themes as quickly as we can to then start to build on.
Yeah. And you mentioned those who are involved, not just the SocEnv team, not just the board members. You mentioned the member bodies, and I guess the registrants as well. You touched on that team element you mentioned. We now have a team of over 9,000 chartered environmentalists, registered environmental practitioners, and technicians, and bringing them together and I was going to say utilizing it, working with them to move environmental professionalism forward. It's got to be good for them as individuals anyway. If we start to make our registrations more and more influential and impactful, but they have a massive role to play as well, don't they? As part of that wider team.
They do, absolutely, and I think there's a sort of virtuous circle in this. That when our registrants start to see SocEnv being better known and more respected in Whitehall, for example, as well as in the devolved nations around the UK and internationally, when they see that, they will feel proud to be part of that club, and also I think more enthused to see what they can do to play their part, and also to think about how can I use is the wrong word, but use the power and the experience of other registrants in order to help them in whatever role they have. It might be worth mentioning, Phil, that I'm sort of a reluctant convert to Society for the Environment, because about 10 or 12 years ago, I was asked to become Vice President Environment at the Institute of Water, which is one of the member bodies of SocEnv. And I've never been an institutional person. I've never been involved in professional institutions, even though a role I had at the Environment Agency was responsibility for pretty much everything to do with the environment in England and Wales, so water, land, fisheries, biodiversity. But to become Vice President Environment, apparently I was required to have become chartered, which is fair enough, because I was responsible for professional registration with the Institute of Water. So I found that a new an interesting experience, just being assessed by my peers and it made me reflect on my own career journey, what I was doing in terms of CPD, and gaining chartership meant a lot more to me, and still does, than I could ever have imagined. When previously I said I don't need to become chartered. Chantelle described it earlier as a confidence boost, and it was for me. And I never realised that I needed one. And having become chartered, I then wanted to find out more about SocEnv. And I think, my journey may or may not be typical of others, but I think if others find that when they become chartered, they want to become more involved, more engaged with society and the environment, and work with all our fellow registrants to recognise the power of working together rather than individually.
Very useful to hear. That typical element, the typical experience of a registrant, given how broad we are, it is sometimes quite challenging to figure out what typical might look like. It's an interesting one because the environment is so broad, and it should be, and the amount of diversity across professions and so on is incredible, and certainly something to be celebrated. But typical is a challenge, I must admit.
If you think about it, with when becoming professionally registered, you need to demonstrate not only that you understand what you're doing in your own role, but also where it fits in the broader context.
Yes.
And I think we don't make enough of folks' understanding of all those linkages and the opportunities that those present. If you understand how things join up in the broader environment, how different professions can interact, then, as I said earlier, you can do so much more together than you can individually.
And that mention of diversity gives me a good point to mention that alongside this podcast, we're also going to be releasing a number of impact case studies from our registrants, showcasing what they've done in 2025 to better the environment, to protect it, and so on. And there's a broad range there, it's fair to say. And it is, no disrespect to the case studies we've got in, a tiny segment of our registrant base and the impact that they're having. So it might be, I think it's maybe 5 or 6 or 7 case studies. Clearly, there could be 9,000 case studies, but it gives us a good snapshot into what's going on, what kind of people, what kind of professionals are within the registrant base. I'm just going to bring Emma in at this point, just to talk about what this, and we've touched on a few things with Ian, but what does this mean for SocEnv? This is a high-level strategy, and that's what strategies are. So what does it mean for the SocEnv team, and what might people, I guess, expect to see in the next X amount of years?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Thanks, Ian. So my job is to pick up that strategy that we've been developing with the board, and actually turn it into reality, turn that into a delivery of some form. So as Ian has already said, we'll be taking that strategy and turning it into a business plan. We're looking at the first 5 years. We're not going to look at all 20 years in one go, but we do have our eye on some long-term targets as well as those kind of more short and medium-term ones. So we will, that's what we'll be doing over the next couple of months. And as Ian's also said, the kind of launch of the strategy is around April, May. So what does that mean for SocEnv and the team? I mean, many of the things that we've been talking about are things that we do, but what we're looking at doing is amplifying our efforts. So how can we do more with the resources that we have? How can we leverage our fantastic relationships with our member bodies and our board members and our registration authority and our honorary fellows and others to all be pulling in the same direction? So we're really looking at how we really build on that collaboration that I think is one of SocEnv's strengths, so how we can do that even better. But as you said, we need people's help to help us achieve that. We have big ambitions and we're a small team, and we always deliver, I think, over the size of the team. But if people can help us and can support, then that's absolutely fantastic. So I have a couple of requests, if I may. First of all, if you've listened to this podcast and you've listened to the strategy and it kind of interests you or inspires you, please reach out to us, because we'd love to hear from you. If you are a current registrant, fantastic. And if you're not a registrant, it'd be great to hear why not, what the barriers have been, what might help you. It'd be really great to hear those things. So please do reach out. my email is on the website. You can reach me through LinkedIn as well, or one of the other team members would be fantastic. For our current registrants, we are issuing a short questionnaire survey for you, because again, we really want to understand your views and how you think we can amplify what we're doing, how we can increase the benefits, and how you might want to support that as well. So that will be launched around the 26th of January. It'll be open for 2 to 3 weeks. We will promote it through our newsletter that's coming out. We'll also put it on our LinkedIn and on our website through a news story as well. So please keep an eye out for that. And again, if you don't see that, you can go onto the website and sign up for the newsletter, and then that will make sure you get that information. But we're really keen to hear your views as part of this. We've done a lot of consultation, we've done a lot of listening, but actually the people out there with our registrations kind of working in these roles, your view is really, really valuable for us at this time. So then, as I said, we're kind of taking all of that and looking the best way to deliver it. We're looking at our short-term goals, medium, long-term, and really kind of leveraging some of those great ideas that's come out of the board group that Ian was talking about. And I agree, they've been absolutely fizzing with ideas, which has been fantastic.
Good to hear. And that is a good way to sign off our 2025 Impact podcast, looking well into the future, trying to figure out what we're going to do to become bigger, better, and more influential across all of our registrant base. So with that in mind, thank you to all of our guests today, Ian, Emma, Rebecca, Tom, Chantelle. As always, we've covered a lot, and in a different recording format this time, which was exciting. If you, the listener, have made impact you'd like to shout about from 2025, let us know in the YouTube comments. We're keen to keep the conversation going, as always. And finally, please check out any links and resources in the pod description to keep learning. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode next month. If you've made it this far, please remember to subscribe wherever you're listening to this episode so you don't miss the next one. Also, rate our podcast and leave a comment to help us reach more people. Thank you very much for listening or watching on YouTube. We look forward to the next episode next month. See you then.